Hi everyone. So a couple people asked me to quickly make a video on how I have been sewing shirts for Smart Doll using my serger. So in order to show you what I've been doing, I'm using a Singer Merit Lock serger. It's about 30 years old, but you really can't kill it. I really like it. It has a really small presser foot, so it's pretty easy to sew the doll clothes with. The pattern that I've been working with lately is the Raglan shirt pattern by Sam Sully Under Orange. You can get it on Etsy, and I will put the link in the comments. But it's a really, really nice pattern to use. I've modified it for a lot of different things, including dresses, sweaters, but that's what I'll be using for this demonstration. I have my serger set up to get with a 3-needle configuration, so it's just 3 thread and the narrowest seam. And so that gives me about a 3.5mm seam to work with, which is really good for the 1/3 scale Smart Doll clothes. In order to demonstrate how to put together Sam Sully Under Orange's Raglan shirt pattern using a serger, I have some pattern pieces already cut out. I made a few modifications so that it would be a little less close fitting, so I widened the sleeves a little bit and then just added a little bit here to the front. I have some ribbing material for the neckline and the cuffs. I don't usually cut that to size. I just kind of sew it on as I need to when I'm doing it, and then cut off the excess. So what I'll start with here is we'll attach the cuffs to the sleeves. And so starting with that, we'll just take the 2 sleeves, and I'm just going to basically serge along this line, then I'll cut it here and do the same for the other one. So to start attaching the cuffs, I'm just going to kind of line these up here. The excess is going to get cut off by the knife from the serger, so I don't worry too much about that. I like to put a little bit extra on that edge there. So just kind of line that up so the excess is getting cut off. And then you want to stretch it a little bit as it goes through so that it'll kind of gather that cuff up. So just go ahead and stretch it for the length that I'm going to want it. And again, that excess is going to get cut off, so here we go. And I'm done with it. There we go. Alright, so here is what it looks like. And then if I fold that over, we have a really nice cuff for this sleeve. So then I'm just going to cut this excess off here. I leave, maybe a 1/4 inch or so. So that's one sleeve, and then we'll use this part for the other sleeve. So again, we do the same thing. I'm just putting a little bit of, line up the 2 raw edges to the raw edges. And it's going to be easier to go through the serger this direction. So let me kind of put it roughly where it needs to be. Get a little bit more on that side so it catches better. Alright, so we kind of have like so. Then I'm just going to kind of stick it in there. That's holding everything together. Stretch it out about the same amount, and then there we go. Alright, so there is the second sleeve. I'm going to cut off a little bit here, kind of leave that there. Alright, so now we've done the cuffs here. So what we'll do next is we'll go ahead and we will attach the sleeves to the front of the shirt. I've gone ahead and I've pinned the sleeves to the front part of the shirt, so we'll just go ahead, we'll serge along here, and we'll serge along here. And this is one of the things I like about this, is it has a really small presser foot, so you can get into these small areas a lot easier. So we'll just go ahead and lift that, again, line it up next to the knife, and keeping, and I put it in the wrong space. We do not want to serge there. So let me go ahead and put it where it needs to be actually serged. Otherwise we would be closing up our neckline. And we're going to go around that. So there's that. Now we'll do the other one. And you want to make sure you don't get your pins under the needle, or you can end up messing up your looper or something. So here we go. We'll do the next one. Go a little bit slower this time. Oops, there we go. So we have now attached the sleeves to the front, and so now we will go ahead and we'll attach the back pieces to the sleeves, and then we'll put the collar on. So now I have the back of the shirt connected to the sleeves. It'll kind of make one big, semicircle when we get it all sewn together. All right, so again, put it under the presser foot, line it up with the knife edge. I'm going to make sure I have that out of the way so I don't sew over the pin. And here we go. One sleeve. I'm just going to line that up a little bit better. Put it under the presser foot, and the edge of the serger knife will clean that up. And we can do the next one. There we go. All right, so if we take those apart now, we have this whole thing here. And so along this edge here is where we're going to put the collar. It's the same ribbing materials we did for the sleeve. We're going to do exactly the same thing. All right, so rather than pin, I just prefer to line it up and hold it as I go through. So I'm going to put that under the presser foot, line it up to the edge of the knife here. And we'll do the same thing where we kind of pull it through, and we're going to cut off those excess edges. And so you just kind of want to go slow. I try to make sure the tails are out this way so they're not getting sewn back up into the seam. All right, then we go through. We're going to stretch the collar a little bit more. Make sure all these pieces are out of the way. You can use the tails there to pull it through a bit. The main thing is we want to be making sure we're getting an even edge off there. Pull that a little bit more. All right, just about done here. Make sure those are out of the way. Make sure we've got all that kind of back under there effectively. There's a little bit unevenness there, but I think that'll kind of take care of itself as we go through. All right, and then to finish it off, you just fold this over here, do that, and trim there. And so then I've got pins stuck to my. We're just going to trim this excess here, leave a 1/4 inch or so. And so there is. It's a fairly wide neck collar for this one, and you just use shorter. And then we'll do the same thing for the bottom after we sew the sides up. So the next part I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold this over, and we'll go down in one stitch down the sleeves and down the side. All right, so I now have the sweatshirt pinned together so that the sides of the sleeves and the side of the shirt are together for both sides. And so we'll start on this side, and we're going to serge all the way from the cuffs through the armpit and down the side. One of the things I like to why I leave my tails on through this process is it makes it really nice to line up the seams here. So as we're going through, I'll pull on those, and that keeps everything nicely together. All right, so it's really important when you start to make sure these are lined up. Once they're under the presser foot, they usually stay together really nicely, but I like to get them up and kind of butt them up right next to the knife to start with. Make sure everything is lined up well. And then we're going to go ahead and just do the whole thing in one seam. And make sure you're cutting off a little bit on the edge there to keep everything even and lined up. And once we start to get here where that seam is, I kind of just use that to help me judge exactly where everything is. And kind of, the knife got a little bound up there. All right, there we go. We're kind of
coming around here. You want to kind of readjust things. I know we have it pinned, but this is stretchy fabric, so just kind of keep it together where it needs to be. Now we're going down the side of the side seam, and then I just kind of pull down here to make sure everything is lined up at the bottom. Alright, so we have one side done here. Alright, so take those out, and we'll do exactly the same thing on the other side. So that's the side we've just done, and now we're going to repeat what we did here. Make sure we get the cuffs lined up, the presser foot butted up nicely against the knife so everything is even. And we want to make sure that if we've left, a 1/4 inch or so, you're cutting that off and still cutting a little bit into the seam here. All right, so here we go. All right, now we're coming up to that side seam here, so I'm just going to use those tails, kind of make sure that it's getting pulled through. Now down the side. Just as necessary. All right, so that's all done. So now we have everything sewn together, and you can see here I just kind of missed catching it. It kind of got loose, so I'm actually going to just quickly run that through again. Just kind of stick it back in here. And I'm not going to do the whole seam. I'm just going to get enough to make sure that my needle is catching it. And then I'm just going to run it through right where I missed it here. And then up there. Okay, so you can fix things if you mess up. It's just a little bit more finicky. All right, so that's all done. And so you can see now we have, what I want to do next is we're going to put, in this case, some ribbing along the bottom. So we're going to put ribbing along here. And then after that point, I will serge the edges to clean them up, and we'll actually use the sewing machine to do that final seam so that it makes it a little bit easier to put the stand hole in. To do the ribbing, we're going to do the same thing. We line it up so that when we fold it down, we'll have the seam there. So I put maybe a 1/4 inch or so over, line up edge to edge. I'm going to put that under the presser foot against the knife. All right. And then, again, I'm going to just stretch the top without stretching the bottom. All right, here we go. Keeping it nice and even. I don't want to kind of run off the edge there. And just that so that we're, again, keeping it pretty even all the way across. In there. All right, so there's that, and what it'll look like now is we just unfold it like that. Okay, so next I'm just going to finish the edges here so that they'll look nice when we do a seam on the sewing machine. Make sure that the collar is pointed, that the ribbing is down so that it will lay the proper direction, and you want your ribbing on the bottom to be laying up. All right, so here we go. And you may need to kind of guide that under the presser foot so it doesn't flip the other way. So there's that. And then we'll do the same thing. I'll start it this way, opposite, so that it goes on the right side of the presser foot. So let's get that under there. Make sure that this is flipped up so that it will lay flat when everything is sewn together. And keep going. So I'm going to make sure if I need to poke it down the right direction, I can do that so that it's not flipped the opposite way. All right, so there we have that. And at this point, all we need to do then is pin these together and mark where the stand hole needs to be. And then we'll just run a straight stitch along there, stopping at the stand hole. So I have marked where to stop and then restart stitching for the stand hole using a heat erasable marker. And then we're just going to put it on the sewing machine here. We're going to do a straight stitch all the way down. I'll back stitch a couple times at the top to secure it, and I just do that with the hand wheel. And we'll just straight stitch this all the way down. And back stitch to secure it. Okay. Pull those tails out a little bit. And then we will start again where the mark is, and I'll do a couple of stitches just to secure it. And then we can actually use these tails to hold it so that everything matches up nicely at the end. Oops, a little bit. Got to put it out of reverse. Should still be fine though. Lift that so that it's flat under there. And then put it a couple of times. Alright. Finally, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to straight stitch a little bit here on the bottom and the top of the stand hole and at the top of the collar, and that will just help this seam lay flat. So I'm just going to slide the sweatshirt over the arm there. Make sure that's all up, out of the way. Get that tucked under decently. And then I'll just go back and forth quickly a couple of times here. Make sure see if I can get that over on this side. If not, I'll just do that by hand. Okay, so that one won't go quite over the arm there, so I'll just do that by hand. So we'll just trim off the extra threads, and then I've already done some of this already, but you want to basically weave in your tails. So I like to use this, which is I think it's a cross stitch threader, which is just wonderful. And so I just thread that through my blunt needle, pull the tail through, and then you're just going to weave it in through the seam under the loops and that'll keep it from unthreading. Just pull that through, and then you can just cut off the other end. And those magnetic scissors are just getting everything.
All right, so now we have our finished sweatshirt. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. Keep in mind that I've really just been teaching myself how to sew by muddling through patterns during this pandemic, so I'm probably doing a lot incorrectly, or which you're also feel free to point out in the comments if you wish. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, and hope to see you next time.